Hello, everyone. How are we all? Awesome. My name is James. I'm the Executive Director of Miami Film Festival, and I'm here with...
I'm Lauren Cohen, the Director of Programming at Miami Film Festival.
And we're so thrilled that you could join us today. This is the 11th edition of GEMS, and it's the very final evening. This is the second last event. How many people have come to quite a few things at GEMS? Thank you. So I just wanted to quickly say, for those of you who are new to us, Miami Film Festival holds 2 events a year. We have the smaller GEMS Festival, which is like award season films. These are the ones trying to win Oscars. These are the best audience award winners at festivals from around the world. And it's a smaller program filled with like amazing films. And then we have the big festival in April. So for those of you who love to see more celebrity talks like this, love to get an insight in how films are made, and come and see one of our more than 100 features, we recommend that you stay in touch with us and join us again in April, because this is what we do, and we love to see you at our venues. I just wanted to quickly say, please keep coming. I think that's what I wanted. I know what it was. We had 16 of our GEMS titles sell out this season, and an increase of, thank you. And then an increase of 130% on our ticket sales. So we're really thrilled. And I'm glad that you're all experiencing films in the cinema where they belong. Lauren.
But tonight is all about Sebastian Stan. You know him from, let's hear it for Sebastian Stan. We're so excited to have him here tonight. You guys know him from films and TV shows such as Fresh, Tonya, Pam and Tommy, and of course, as the Winter Soldier in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's hear it for the Winter Soldier. But then there are 2 very special films with 2 incredible performances, both from Sebastian Stan in the past few months that just came out, and that's A24's A Different Man and The Apprentice. I think he's going to he's getting a ton of awards buzz. He's already gotten a bunch of awards, and I think we're going to see some nominations for these movies because these are 2 of the best performances of the year, and they both are, lead performances from Sebastian Stan. A few big thank yous. A big thank you to A24 for helping make tonight happen, to Miami-Dade College for hosting us tonight in this beautiful Wolfson Auditorium, and a big thank you to Scott Feinberg and The Hollywood Reporter. So to kick off tonight's live recording of the Awards Chatter podcast, please join us in welcoming The Hollywood Reporter's Scott Feinberg.
Thank you both very much. It's great to be in Miami, and thank you all for being here tonight. It is my great honor and privilege tonight to speak with one of the most talented young actors in our business, who is having the biggest year of his career, Sebastian Stan. Only 42, he has already been acting on screens big and small for more than 20 years. He has starred in more than 30 films and TV programs. He has received nominations for Emmy, Golden Globe, and Critics' Choice Awards. And just a few months from now, he could, and in my humble opinion, should be nominated for an Oscar as well. The biggest dilemma is how to choose between his 2 great performances in 2024 films. He's Edward, an aspiring actor afflicted with the craniofacial condition neurofibromatosis, who undergoes groundbreaking facial reconstructive surgery in Aaron Schimberg's A Different Man, for which he was awarded the Berlin International Film Festival's Best Actor Prize. And he's Donald Trump, a young businessman in the 1970s and 1980s, learning the ropes from and then abandoning his mentor, Roy Cohn, in Ali Abbasi's The Apprentice. If you haven't yet seen one or both, get on it, because everyone is talking about it, and it's only going to get louder in the coming months. And so we will be talking about both of those films, everything leading up to it. It's sort of for those of you who have not yet been acquainted with this podcast, Awards Chatter, we kind of look at it as a this is your life, the major moments in the life and career leading up to, and of course, including the most recent projects. And so it is a treat to be able to do that tonight here at the Miami Film Festival GEMS and on the Hollywood Reporters Awards Chatter podcast with Mr. Sebastian Stan. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Miami, although I think many of us would like to come, any excuse to come to Miami. It's so great here.
Miami. Yeah.
That's right. Well, I would like to begin at the very beginning, as we do on each episode. Can you share with our listeners and our folks here where you were born and raised and what your parents did for a living?
Oh, wow. I was born in Constanța, Romania in 1982, and my mom was a pianist, pretty much then piano teacher all her life, and my dad was a lot of things. Primarily at the time, he actually helped a lot of people your age escape the country that was under communism, and then he was a wanted man. And then later on ended up in the States himself. So might be a movie there at some point.
Well, so the revolution in Romania was 1989, 1990. You and your mom were out of there, right?
Yeah, my mom left early. I was with my grandparents. She, as a pianist, she was able to go after the revolution to Vienna, Austria. And after 2 years, came and got me. And then I moved there with her for about 4 years until 1995 when I moved to New York.
And arriving in New York, you're 12 and not really an English speaker at that point. And that's kind of where the movies first really make a big impact on your life, right?
Yeah, well, the thing was, my mom was always trying to get me into acting, even when I was in Vienna. She was taking me to these cattle call auditions and stuff. There was one that Michael Haneke was having for this TV show, 61 Fragments. They wanted a actual kid from Romania who was an orphan. There were a lot of orphan kids at the time that were leaving the country. It was just because of all the fallout of the revolution. And so anyway, I got that part. I think I was like 9 or 10. I hated it. It was not a fun experience. And then my mom just sort of, backed off and was like, okay, you should just go and be a kid. She remarried to my stepdad, who was American. And again, whether it's fate or luck or, he was a big part of my life coming to America and bringing us to New York and learning English, managing to do it before I was, like 12. And then it's actually when they say after 12 is when you really start to have an accent, and it gets harder with languages. So if you ever have kids, teach them all the languages before 12. Right. But, and so, and then I kind of, dabbled with wanting to be an astronaut and things like that. And then sort of when I was a teenager, I kind of got into school plays again. And then I went to this acting camp.
This is it's pretty known, Stage Door
Manor. Yeah. That was, Downey went there when he was a kid, and Natalie Portman had gone there. It's a beautiful place. And I met my manager there, who I'm still with, Emily Gerson-Sains, and that's when it kind of all started.
You met her in the sense that she saw you in a production, or she was a
She
fellow?
did, yeah. I was in Grease, the musical, and she just said, "Hey, you should call me when you get, have your parents call me when you get back to the city before school." And I didn't actually. I've lost the phone number, but she found me again, and then. I just slowly would start going on auditions, but I still went to college first.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I see you were at Rutgers and studying what?
Acting,
that was your major,
So Rutgers University was great. It was because, I always wanted to be in the city, and, I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to do the thing. And Emily, my manager, was really adamant that I go to college, and she actually said, you should get this almanac. It has every single best movie made in the last 100 years, and I want you to go and watch every single movie that won Best Picture. When you're done with that, watch every Best Actor movie that won Best Actor, and so on and so on. And that was a real education for me in ways of seeing movies, but. I also wasn't getting jobs. My first job was, Law and Order.
I was gonna say, so many great. We just did an episode with Zoe Saldana. Same thing. It seems like because they were shooting a lot in New York, right, and casting a ton of people.
A lot in New York, yeah. And it was I was a sophomore in college at Rutgers when that happened, yeah. And then I had to ask the teachers to allow me to go work outside of school, which was all a thing.
So that aired in 2003. That's your first screen credit. Yeah. Early on, I don't know specifically when, but you've talked about a kind of probably, unfortunately, not that uncommon experience with a casting director who didn't give you the proper respect. But there's a happy ending to this. So can you share that?
I also don't even want to out the person, but because they're incredible. These are and here's the way life is funny. She actually ended up giving me my first film job, weirdly. But before that, there was one time where I went in for an audition, and they were at the computer typing, and the assistant kind of brought me in, and I said hi, and they were like, yeah, sure, hello. And then I just kind of went in there, and then I was like, are we gonna really do this? Because she's just typing away. Anyway, she didn't even look at it. And yeah, it was for that movie Zarathustra or something. It was James Favreau.
Yeah. Okay, so from those illustrious beginnings, the initial break, which at the time probably felt like a very big break, I would think, you were on the first 3 seasons, sporadically, 11 episodes spread across them, of a program on the CW called Gossip Girl. Right. You were Carter Bazin, troubled rich kid, nemesis of Ed Westwick's Chuck Bass. Tell us a little bit. I mean, look, we can chuckle about it, but a lot of people watched it. A lot of people liked it. And it was a cool gig, big gig for a young actor. It was
totally a huge opportunity. And it was a massive, it was education for me, really. I mean, also, I was friends with, Chase Crawford, who we had worked on another film before, which wasn't very good. But to be in New York, be home, and at the time that show was really massive. I mean, it still has a lot of fans, and I think for me the biggest lessons I took there were just seeing for the first time what can happen when you become famous. And I'm not talking about me. There was no one. I was always remember that movie with Jason Segel, and Mila Kunis, he's holding the purse on the red carpet. That's kind of who I was. During that time, I was always the sixth man, I talk about the basketball of it all. But I was watching them just catapult to this insane fame. And, it was interesting because at the time, of course, I wanted as well to be part of the group in a way, but I don't think I was ready for that at the time.
What happened around the same time that started, I think, was that you did get to Broadway, which must have been pretty thrilling. There was a show, Talk Radio.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you just talk about, again, you did theater summer camp and stuff, but was this for you as a very big deal?
Well, so I go back to college, I did, I went to a BFA program. We had a year in London, my junior year at Rutgers. We were at the Globe Theater, which was exciting. And we worked on a lot of plays, Mamet, all kinds of different playwrights, William Inge, and Eric Bogosian was one of them. And actually, Eric Bogosian was, when you go out for a theater school, you got to prepare these monologues and stuff. And so I I'd worked on one of his monologues from this play Suburbia that I loved. And so I was familiar with him. And then, long story short, when I got out of college, they were doing Suburbia, and Joe Bonney, his wife, was directing, and I went out for it, and I didn't get it, and I was devastated, and it was off Broadway. And then they actually remembered me for Talk Radio, this other play that he was doing, which was going to be on Broadway, and it was with Liev Schreiber. And so weirdly, I think, I ended up being in it, and that was a really, again, a very big education for me.
And just to kind of, I guess, show how things can, one thing can lead to another, things could have been in a totally different direction. I mean, one of the people who saw you in that, who then put you in a little role in an important movie, which led to a lot of other important people putting you in important movies, was Jonathan Demme, the late Jonathan Demme, who I guess says to you, I like you, I want you in Rachel Getting Married, his movie starring Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, basically, a lot of people came to see that play. I mean, it was I even met Paul Newman. He was even at that play. I couldn't, and so Jonathan Demme was one of the people, and then he ended up, and he did Silence of the Lambs in Philadelphia and stuff, and he came backstage and just said, "Look, I'm doing this movie. I don't have a part for you, but I'll just there's this thing at the beginning. It's like a crazy guy when she's leaving rehab. Maybe you could do that." And then he put me in the movie. And so that kind of started that idea for me of, and the scene was with Anne Hathaway, and it was really great. And also an incredible director. And that kind of started to give me this idea that, you know what, I don't think it matters what part I'm going to play in a movie or a TV show, as long as it has a great director and I'm surrounded by really great actors that are better than me. Because I'm going to, it's that company you keep. I'll always be learning. So I kind of applied that to, Aronofsky had one scene in this Black Swan, and then there was a couple of scenes in Ridley Scott's The Martian. And so I would just jump in there if they had me.
Now, I don't know if this was as a result of the profile being raised by being in Rachel Getting Married, or maybe it was from Talk Radio, but there were a couple of big auditions around that time that did not necessarily pan out, but were indicative of the fact that you were getting on people's radar who, were doing big things. Can you just explain how you almost were Captain Kirk in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek in 2009, yeah. And then also, and this one maybe it's for the best, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern in Green Lantern 2011.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think was helpful for me was, I had my manager who was in New York, and so I didn't really have to move to LA, and I never really wanted to move to LA. And so back then we didn't have, the technology now. So actually, if you're in New York, you'd have to send these tapes, actual VHS tapes that I would do with a camcorder and then transfer and then FedEx it and the whole thing. But it was kind of if you could hit the tape, if you could get them to watch it, you could get further than, the 20 guys that they were seeing one after the other in the room in LA. So I would make these tapes and I got pretty close, I remember I went out there for the OC. I didn't get that. I mean, anyway, and then Star Trek was one of those things. I had made a tape. I guess he had seen it. And then I flew out to LA and I was going to have this screen test. And the screen tests are, they're very weird. They're like a big tease because you actually sign that you have, but you don't have the job, but they pretend like you do.
So that if you get it, you're
on that thing. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God, it's a screen test. And I didn't know who else was up for it or what was going on. Although I'd heard that Chris Pine was, at the time, he was maybe being considered, but not 100%. He was in another movie. And I went up to Paramount Studios, and I thought I was going to get on the stage and like, you know, it's going to be a spaceship and the whole thing. And it was actually just like an office with like computers and just me and him and like a tiny camera. And I'm like, is this really what it's going to be? And he's literally sitting there going, he's narrating to me. I don't have a partner. I don't have any lines. Like he's narrating to me of like, okay, and now you're going up and you're coming up to this cliff and you see this big sunrise and you think you've gotten away, but you hear a noise and you turn around and there's this big massive thing. It kind of looks like King Kong, but not really. You know, it's like Star Wars. And I'm like, I'm not getting this job. I've already overacted and like I'm like in a silent film, you know. But like so. I got out of there being like, I don't think I got that, if that was it. And so then my manager was like, Emily was like, quick, let's show him you look like William Shatner. Let's just do this photo shoot and then I mimicked like all of these photographs of William Shatner when he was younger and sent it to him, you know, like didn't get it. But again, it's like, yeah, and Green Lantern was also a strange thing. Actually, there we had the costumes and everything. Like I had, you know, the mask and everything. And I actually, because I talked about this on Josh Horowitz on this Happy Second Fuse, I actually remembered who the other guy was. It was Bradley Cooper.
Really?
Yeah, Bradley Cooper, Justin Timberlake, Jared Leto, Ryan Reynolds, and myself.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bring up a movie that was not a success, but is important nonetheless, I believe, for reasons that will become apparent. I think it was in 2010 that you started filming a horror film called The Apparition.
Oh, yeah.
Which did not do well when it finally came out like 2 years later, I believe. But it was as a result of your involvement with The Apparition that what happened?
That it led to Marvel, yeah, and Captain America. I mean, again, very bizarre chain of events because we were in Germany, we were in Berlin shooting that film. I had gotten a notice to make a tape for Steve Rogers, whatever. I didn't even know who that was because I'd never read any of the comic books. I made a tape, and basically, I wasn't going to go to LA, but then they said, they liked the tape. They gave me notes to make another tape. I made another tape. And then I ended up, we moved the production to LA. And when I was in LA, they had me come in and then I did it with the casting director the third time. And then they said, okay, we'll screen test you. Again, this word. And again, I went in there and, you know, I did the whole screen test for Evans's part, basically like with a shield and an outfit, and there were other actors there. Krasinski was one of them, and you know, anyway, and didn't get it. And then a week later, I get a phone call from, you know, to come into Marvel offices with Kevin Feige and Lou Esposito, and they're sitting there talking about this other character.
Just to interrupt for 1 second. So the connective thread was the producer.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was, and unbeknownst to me, Kevin Feige was calling Joel Silver, who was the producer of The Apparition, who's a insane person, but really, and I mean, he's done so many films and a massive producer, and you know, I still owe him a thank you because he had Kevin come into the editing room and sort of screen, you know, he was showing him, I guess they wanted to know what I looked like on camera or something. So, and that combination, I think, is what led to Bucky Barnes.
So, yeah, I mean, so it doesn't pan out that you would be Captain America. They, as you say, then reach back out and what was the framing of, like, did you, hey, that didn't work out, but we want to offer you this other one, or that didn't work out and we want to see about another thing?
Well, pretty much like what they did. They didn't say it in this way, but it was kind of insinuated that in the screen test for Steve Rogers, they realized while I was not right for Steve Rogers, that there was something not 100% with me. There was something off about me that maybe I could play something darker, you know. And
let me give you a quick quote. So the original Captain America: The First Avenger, 2011, was directed by Joe Johnston, who said in 2011, quote, Sebastian has a little bit of the bad boy. He's a little bit of the James Dean type, and that goes somewhat counter to the general perception of Steve Rogers. He wasn't quite right for Captain America, but I think he's perfect for Bucky because really he can have a little bit of that dark side, close quote. That was how it was communicated to you as well, why they were coming back?
I think, yeah. I mean, the screen test was basically this monologue that I don't remember if it ended up in the movie or not, where I'm supposed to rally the troops, but it looked like I was like, gonna die in the process. And like, I don't know if they thought like that was but look, I think I lucked out in a lot of ways because when I did go back there, yeah, they were saying, we haven't even started casting this other role, but it's this crazy role because he starts out like this and then he ends up being brainwashed and he comes back and he's always fighting between these two selves. And I'm just like, yeah, please give me the role. Like, I just don't care. I mean, whatever you want, like whatever, sounds great. And and then I didn't know if that was like it was like an introduction or what. And because I didn't get a definitive answer until I was on set again on the apparition on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And I got a phone call from an unknown caller ID that was Kevin and said, like, you're going to be that guy.
Now, how do you process that? Is that immediately exciting, scary, I mean, it seems like it would be and the fact, again, when you sign up to do it, which you are now going to do, that's how big of a commitment as well.
Well, they said 9 movies, and I was like, that doesn't sound. I didn't know what that meant,
right.
But I honestly like. And a year from that moment, I was going to get a phone call from my business manager saying that I had 2 months left of like paying my rent.
Right.
So you
weren't going to ask too many questions at that point.
No. But
well,
yeah,
so James Buchanan, Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, childhood best friend of sickly fellow orphan Steve Rogers, who grows up to become, in the case of Bucky, as we say, military man, brainwashed into working for the Soviets. We see him in the first Avenger, 2011, which was Joe Johnston. Then from the Russo brothers, The Winter Soldier, 2014. Civil War 2016, Infinity War 2018, Endgame 2019, the 6-episode limited series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier 2021, a voice on the 5-episode animated limited series What If 2021 to 2023, and the forthcoming in 2025 Thunderbolts. What I want to ask you is what, at the beginning, you kind of made of this character that did you have, how far ahead do they tell you about where this is all going and how do you keep
they
it
were like, he
yourself?
becomes Captain America,
Yeah.
And I was like, what? It was, I got the whole rundown, but I think an important piece here is that this was so early on. I mean, they had just only done Iron Man. Really, and I think Thor hadn't even come out yet, or it was about to. So, and this is what I love about Kevin, and I love about them, all of them, is there's just never been any. There's never been any expectation or weird attitude about anything. They're always as humble about it as possible, and even back then they were like, look. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get to do all this stuff, but we don't know. We've got to see if these movies are going to work. We just had that one work, but and it's still that same attitude. I mean, now 15 years later, as they've hit the top of the mountain, and it's still very much like, how do we figure out the best movie that are gonna people are gonna love it, and we're gonna keep people entertained and surprised and stuff. It's always. But I guess to answer your question, it was hopeful, but it was unclear whether we were going to get there.
And from an acting standpoint, I'm wondering for you, you had not been on movie sets the scale of that you were coming into with this, right? I mean, how do you acclimate? Is it do you have to kind of tinker and act in a different way, or is it the same thing for you as doing your job as it is on Black Swan or whatever?
Well, it's interesting because why Black Swan? I mean, I guess that was before. No, but I'd done like this other show, Kings and stuff, and beforehand, I mean, I felt like I had been, I felt comfortable enough. I guess I guess in terms of the magnitude. I mean, Chris and I really got along. I mean, we always got along from the beginning, and he was always such a team player, and so it never felt like I was alone in the process. And I think he was a big brother to me in the sense that he really made me feel comfortable. He'd done so much more than me. I mean, they all had when I got there. Even like Scarlett and later all these people that were in those films. But I think no matter how big the project is, it's always it still goes back to those inner core rules, which is, what is the honest, what is the emotional need of these characters, and what is the honest moment, and you got to commit to it.
And I will say that, people who have looked at it with, given a lot of thought to the acting assignment that you had in these, I mean, some of them speaking in the early ones, it's easy for people to, it's popcorn movie, whatever. But like, you were having as much as anybody to convey emotion without words in a lot of these. And I'll just quote back another thing. So Anthony Russo, again, the Russo brothers come in on the second one and ever since, right? Anthony Russo says of you, quote, "He did things in Winter Soldier that blew us away, finding a way to put forth a complex character, even though he didn't have many opportunities to speak," close quote. Joe Russo said that your performance was, quote, "more complicated than any person in any Marvel movie because he's essentially playing three characters, Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, and now this third iteration that came along," close quote. I guess that keeps it kind of, I mean, it probably makes it interesting that this guy had these kind of.
Well, yeah, the thing is, I never even really thought of them as sort of these superhero films. I mean, I was always just I treated it like life, and to me it was two best friends. You have someone you grow up with, and then they get, they go to war. And I'm sure people have that now, and you're keeping in touch with them, and maybe they didn't want to go, and suddenly their youth gets stolen from them. I mean, both of those guys as youth, as men, where it was taken from them by this thing. It was a very real, relatable situation. And then the guy, Bucky, I mean, the Winter Soldier of it all is really about a guy that has to live with his past and having done all these horrible, despicable things, and find a reason to live and a purpose to live again. I mean, that was very real for me. So I never, and maybe I don't know. I don't know how it was for Paul Bettany, who had to look in the mirror and he was like, "I'm purple," but it might have been a little bit different. I mean, but. I had a very realistic arc, I guess. PTSD, that was the character's arc.
Totally. Now, obviously, you've done a lot of things over the years since you got involved with the Marvel films, where you're doing it in between, finding, I guess, during hiatuses or whatever. I mean, I don't know how you can even schedule anything in your life, because you're on the hook to do those, but you're also finding time to do a lot of other great things, such as, and I'm going to just prompt you about a few of these, in 2012 on the USA Network, a 6-episode limited series called Political Animals, in which you played TJ Hammond. This is the troubled, openly gay son of two politicians, one of them played by Sigourney Weaver, clearly kind of modeled on Hillary Clinton. But this is a Greg Berlanti show who soon took over like all of television. I think he had at one point like more than a dozen shows on at the same time. Yeah. But for you, I mean, something like that where you're choosing what to do with your limited time between these large movies, what drew you to do that? Is it sort of working with experienced, accomplished more veteran actors, or what are the considerations for something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said, I since that Jonathan Demme thing, I thought, okay, I can if I surround myself with people where I'm the last person, the smallest person in the room, then I'll always be learning something, and that was part of it. I mean, Ellen Burstyn, there were a lot of people on that show. Sigourney Weaver was incredible, but then it was also a really interesting character that reminded me in some ways of sort of kind of Fredo in The Godfather. I mean, he's a kid who's just. I think about this a lot, still. It's like we all, you don't always get the tools in life. The desire is there for things and the want to do good, right? But you don't know how, you don't have the tools to do it. And so I felt like it was kind of a interesting character because he kept getting in his own way but he wanted so badly to do good.
Here's just another way to kind of encapsulate, I don't know how you're doing all these things in the same year, but 2015, again, speaking of taking apart probably in part because of who you're working with, you are Meryl Streep's son in Jonathan Demme's Ricky and the Flash. You are in, as you referenced earlier, Ridley Scott's The Martian, but also back on Broadway at a very different point in your career now as the lead in the aforementioned William Inge's Picnic, which was a big, phenomenon there. People, I think, in the sense that people really took notice that, saw you as a leading man here who, this is a kind of classic.
Yeah, it was again, a lot of it came, so kind of what was happening, it was actually quite chaotic couple of years there because after we did the first Captain America film, I didn't really hear from them, and I didn't really know until sort of right as I was starting the play, so I had done Political Animals, and then I was like, okay, I don't know if Winter Soldier is ever going to happen. In fact, I had a friend call me and go, dude, congrats on Winter Soldier. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, they just announced it at San Diego Comic-Con, and your name's in the title. And I was like, I can't believe I'm in this film. And so so I kind of was still trying to find jobs, yeah, those were good opportunities, and then we did the Winter Soldier, and then I actually knew that we were going to go and do Civil War, and the timing worked out with The Martian, which was a big piece of it.
So there's a part with Steven Soderbergh, Logan Lucky in 2017, and also in 2017 a movie that really, for a lot of people who maybe were behind on their Marvel movies or whatever, introduced you to a whole different audience of certainly even in the business, I think made people appreciate you more. And that was the movie called I, Tonya, in which you play Jeff Gillooly, the husband and criminal accomplice of Tonya Harding, in this film, which I guess it's kind of, for the best reasons, hard to describe the tone that Craig Gillespie employed, but we'll just say there's a lot of conflicting accounts that are presented in this, which is probably the most accurate way of telling this crazy story about a guy who in 1994 was probably one of the most hated people in America. What did you know about this guy before getting the script? And then when you got the script, what did you make of the way that it was going to try to tell this story?
So I didn't know a lot. I had seen the 30 for 30 Tonya Harding thing, which was really wild to me. But basically Steven Rogers actually is the screenwriter. Right. He went and he interviewed Tonya Harding and Jeff separately and got the whole story from both of them and different accounts, and then put this script together based on their interviews that he had with them. And it was really an insane sort of story. It was funny and yet tragic and horrific, and so it was kind of hard to always know what the tone was, and that's where Craig really was shined, I think, in wanting that film, and I feel in a way inventing this genre that you've kind of had since that film, of sort of this tabloid kind of, let's go back and re-look at these things in a way, and but a lot of the intention there was, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but Tonya Harding, was stripped of everything. She stood up there and she said, please, just, I'll do anything. Just don't take skating away. Don't take this away from me. This is my life. And they took it away. They banned her for life, and there's always, and just the amount of attack that she got. And so in a way, the movie was really helpful, I think, in bringing some light there, for her story and what happened. But Jeff, again, it's like he was a guy that to me was very ill-equipped to handle the attention that Tonya Harding was getting. And unfortunately, this happens with, I think, a lot of men who feel emasculated when they feel like they have to sort of rely on other horrible ways to feel like they have value in the relationship. Clearly, which he didn't feel like he had any. And then when you look back at his past and you realize his father was a schizophrenic and there was no intimacy in the household, then you start to kind of put pieces together. But
now your co-star in this one is Margot Robbie, this was the beginning of like an insane explosion that's happened with her career. Not the beginning, but it was an early step in that. Obviously, she'd started to come to prominence with Wolf of Wall Street a little before. But you guys, did you screen test together? Were there kind of rehearsals? Just how did you guys get down this? It was a pretty great two-hander in that sense. Yeah.
We had, again, I came in, I did an audition with Mary Vernew, and by the way, there's a lot of jobs I went out for that I didn't get throughout this entire time period. And I got to highlight some of these people that were like angels that looked out for me. Carmen Cuba, who I ended up, again, which is why I'm in The Apprentice, but also cast me in The Martian and then cast me in Logan Lucky, was a cast director that always fought for me. Mary Vernew was somebody else who really was really thoughtful of me. And then we just were in her office with Margot, and we did another sort of improv, and Craig had us kind of improv a few scenes, and I actually had a mustache that I had shaved. It was bizarre.
Well, one last thing for 2017, as if Logan Lucky and I, Tonya, were not enough. There was also Destroyer, where it's you and Nicole Kidman as in sort of the flashbacks, I believe, both undercover people going after or getting involved, infiltrating a Southern California drug gang. She's somebody who I'm curious to hear your experience working opposite. I mean, she works a lot and it's almost always impressive.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's somebody who, you grow up watching, these people. I mean, like Meryl Streep, it's just, there's something that just happens. I mean, for me, I can't lie in those moments. I can't, there's no way that I'm showing up to work opposite those people and I'm not like 150% ready to go there. And I feel like I need that for myself. I've recognized I've been better in that situation, but they elevate actors. That's what they do. They challenge you and they bring you up. They lift you up by simply their commitment to the work. And there's nothing selfish about any of it. I have to say, I've worked with other really super famous male actors, and it's not always that easy, you know. But I felt like she, again, what I was amazed with is the level of commitment that she was bringing to that role. And again, it was, you know, we were very much in it the whole time. I didn't really speak to her outside of the scenes. My first scene on camera with her was actually me meeting her for the first time. And there was a lot of genuine moments there that happened as a result of that. But yeah, just incredible.
Probably one of the more unusual ways of working that I imagine you've come across is with a guy named Drake Doremus, who has done the movie Like Crazy and a bunch of very good but unusually made, I believe it's correct to call it like heavily improv, but not just like, hey, do what you want, like kind of developed way of working with actors. Can you kind of describe, because in this one, movie Endings, Beginnings 2019, it's you, Jamie Dornan, best friends, and then Shailene Woodley, who kind of comes between them. But the way this guy works, I find pretty interesting.
Yeah, so Drake basically hands you like a 40-page script, and it's all kind of basically they meet in the bar and they order a drink and they talk about life and love, and then he tells her about this thing and she says another thing, and it's like that's the scene, and you're like, okay. And then you go to work and you sit there and you're basically improvising and in real time coming up with it. We rehearsed a lot before, in the sense that there's a very unusual way of working. It was a very intimate way, in the sense that, you know, Shailene, again, someone who's very generous and open, and we kind of got together beforehand. I had experienced quite a bit of relationships up and down, not working out, things that I was still trying to work out, figure out. She was too, so was Drake. And a lot of that movie was improvised, came out of our own personal experiences and what we were dealing with. And just, it ended up, you know, basically putting our hearts on the table. Yeah. And, you know, there's a scene where she's pregnant and we're talking about kids, and, you know, a lot of that came in the moment from real, actual, you know, desire and questions of at the time that I was having about kids or not. And so it's a very, you go home and you feel very exposed. You feel very, very naked about it. But something weird, it's very alive. I mean, you're nowhere else but in that moment. And I think about movies a lot in that way. And I don't know if you ever really care to be actors or not, or if it's any interesting to you. It's what's obsessive about it is that we're forced in these moments. It's the only time where you're not looking at your phone, you're not thinking about how you have to save your family, or you have to call or there's bad news coming. Like it distills life to these pockets, and that's why you're always as present as possible. And
so up until this year, I think the most industry appreciation that you had received was for a project, and I'll just describe that recognition first. Emmy, Golden Globe, Critics' Choice Award nominations, just about all you can get for a television limited series, which has become the kind of coolest format for a lot, you know, often a lot of the best stuff seems to be done in that. And that includes Pam and Tommy 2022. This is you playing Tommy Lee, Motley Crue drummer, who becomes involved with Pamela Anderson, and all hell breaks loose. This is an 8-episode limited series, Robert Siegel's show. And, you know, we see you've had some major transformations physically with Trump, with many things that we've talked about or will talk about. But I don't know if you've ever spent more time in a makeup chair than getting ready to play Tommy Lee, but also, you know, getting into the mind of this guy who is quite a character.
Yeah, I mean, again, I remember it was the pandemic. I was excited, that I'd just gotten this movie fresh. And I was like, I thought this is going to be fun. I was going to start that in January. And then I get a call from Craig Gillespie saying, hey, do you want to play Tommy Lee? And I'm like, wow, like I don't have to try for it. Like you're just going to give it to me. I was like, sure. And then I was like, oh God, like why did I just do that? Because I don't have any tattoos on my body, or I don't play the drums, and I don't but yeah, I think one of the things I've learned is you need to have trust with directors, and I had a relationship with him, so I felt very comfortable with him. And then I think the challenge there was really, again, when you have a real person, and I kind of experienced it a little bit with Galuli, like you at least your target, where you have to hit. It doesn't, whether you're going to get there or not, but I don't have to create backstories. I don't have to do anything. I just have to research. And there was a lot of information there. There was a lot of things I didn't know also. I mean, this was really trying the intention, whether it was, I'm sure it got lost in the media and in the press because, the media loves to play good cop, bad cop whenever it's convenient for them. But the intention was to, hey, like, what do you guys actually know about what happened here? And weirdly, a lot of people didn't know that they had nothing to do with that. I certainly didn't know that. I mean, growing up, and it was in a way to kind of try and sort of give some justice there, But in terms of him, yeah, you couldn't do anything in the pandemic. I was locked up like everybody else for 2 months, and I just started, I started taking drum lessons and basically not eating and running, getting 20 to 25,000 steps a day, and watching like religiously everything. And then I was really sweating that feeling. I'm not sure we had our first rehearsal. The thing is, when you get offered something, it's great, but then you're like, oh, but what if they see you on day one and they go, that was a mistake, So we had this rehearsal, and I remember kind of Lily and I were both sort of like hopping along our way into doing it, but it wasn't quite there until day one, when we had this brilliant hair and makeup team, and the tattoos came on, the hair dye was on, and we transformed. And then I didn't take the tattoos off. I was loving going around with tattoos and playing music and not being recognized. I just sort of lived it.
There are a lot of moments in that are very memorable we could talk about, and you and Lily are both great. There's scenes in which Tommy Lee is conversing with an animated version of his penis. There's a...
can I just throw in a really good fact? Because I keep hoping that's going to get out there. Yeah. It hasn't.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, I was saying Rob Siegel's like, hey, what do you think about maybe calling your pal Chris? Like he could do the voice for the penis. And I was like, you want Chris Evans to be the talking penis to my Tommy Lee? It's never going to happen. I'm not calling him. We're also going to ruin ourselves and everything. But yeah.
Well, but I mean, and people, again, as you say, will fixate on the more salacious things. But there's a scene in there that I've heard you separately and Lily separately talk about, which I think it's correct to highlight. I think it's in episode 5. And you guys apparently refer to it as the John Cassavetes scene in Pam and Tommy. Can you just remind folks what that was, and that, the tone, again, it might be sort of almost like, in some ways, Tonya, it's not quite like there's a winking element to it, but your job is not any less difficult.
No, I mean, you can't with tone. All that it means is the level of the volume on commitment. That's what that means. It's like if it's a little bit heightened, then your commitment to it and to the moment and to what you're doing is just a little bit bigger. But they were bigger than life. I mean, both of them at the time were sort of big personalities and had a lot. He particularly had a lot of energy. And yeah, we had the scene where it's like they come home and they sort of get into this fight, and it starts off a certain way, and they're getting ready for bed, and then they get in the bed and it escalates, and it just goes, it's like a piece of music. It has all these peaks and valleys. And the reason we refer to it as the John Cassavetes scene was because there was a version of it that we did all in one as a wide, and we were both fighting so hard for them to keep that version, but they were like, it's TV, you know? So we ended up with these, which is fine. It worked out, but I think there was in those John Cassavetes movies that he did so well was just he was always capturing how complex the relationship arguments are. You know, they could go 0 to 10 and back to 5 and back to 7, and it was just that getting to go on that journey with her.
Okay, so this brings us to this crazy year that you're having in 2024. These are two projects that, you know, are hitting at this around the same time, but have been gestating for a while in each case, right? So the first one that was seen was A Different Man, which premiered again at Berlin, where it was so well received, you were recognized. But let's go back. I mean, again, this is a guy who has this facial disfigurement, who is offered the chance to try surgery that might eliminate that, and then lives with the consequences of that, which are unexpected. Can you share the backstory of just this guy, Aaron Schimberg, the filmmaker, and your co-star, Adam Pearson, just their story and how this project came together?
Yeah, so my agent sent me the script and I read it, and you know, I could not see what was coming. Like, I was just continuously, it was so complex and it had so many things going on in every scene. I had to go back and reread it, but it was also so unpredictable. I mean, you just don't see what's coming at any corner. And so from an acting perspective, immediately, I didn't even understand that he was wanting an actor who was able to be in prosthetics. I didn't even get that part from it at first. So a lot of it was me talking to him afterwards. And Aaron Schimberg has a cleft palate. He's, you know, experienced life through disfigurement, and he's tackled this sort of subject matter and disability in his films before. And this is just what that's what, you know, he wants to explore in life. And basically, not only was there something really significantly unique and different that he was trying to say about disability and disfigurement, but there was also this other piece to it that was like way more relatable for everybody in the times that we're in, you know, and how much like we have to fight for our own originality now. We have to protect our own truth and our own identity because we're being handed things left and right of how to be and how to think and what you should feel and what you shouldn't say and how and here's success, you know, or look at how many followers that person has, or maybe you should use that filter. By the way, we have a new thing for you to lose weight. Like, it's just like you're just beaten down. Like, forget that little kid in all of us that's just sitting there going like, what about me, right? And so here's this movie that I find so original. And so immediately I wanted to be a part of it. I just said, please tell me what I can do, how I can be of service to this. And am I reading this correctly? You want me to be in prosthetics, and it's not Adam at the beginning. No. It's important to me because I have tried to do films with Adam Pearson. His previous film with Adam was a movie he did, Chained for Life. And Aaron, the director, received a lot of blowback for sort of hiring Adam in the lead role, and he was accused of exploiting Adam. And
can we say what Adam himself?
Yeah, Adam Pearson is an actor who you might have seen in Under the Skin, who has neurofibromatosis, which are these tumors that sort of come to be around when kids are about 3 or 4. And so it's really wild because they're not necessarily born like that. So Aaron and Adam had worked together on the previous film, and Aaron had a really hard time with the film because, again, there was this issue of exploiting Adam, even though he was trying in a way to do a film about Adam and his own experience. So then he said, well, but if I do this movie with just you, and then they're gonna say I'm not representing anything. And so therefore nothing happens. There's no movie being made. There's no one gets to see anything. And as a result, we don't move our barometer of awareness on this issue at all. So then he figured out a way to do this movie. I know it's very complicated, where he's like, I'm going to do both. I'm going to have an actor which actually has the condition in the film, and I'm going to have an actor with prosthetics, and I'm just going to have them duke it out and let the audience sort of experience both and make their own sort of decisions from it. And that's what came to be.
And Adam, who you end up in this film sharing scenes with, working together, was he part of briefing you once you were, all right, we're going to do this, about what that would actually, what it would be like to go through life with neurofibromatosis?
Yeah, well, we had, one giant challenge we had was we had to really find incredible prosthetics that were believable enough. We have real disabled actors in the film, and then we're going to have an actor in prosthetics. If those aren't believable, nothing's going to work on this journey. I don't know who here has seen the film, but a big part of it for me was, this almost paralyzing fear that I was not going to do the right sort of job well enough for Adam or for anybody really that's really truly dealing with this. And so I did look to Adam and I said, please guide me as you will here, and let me know what I need to know about this experience and how can I understand what this is like. And weirdly, not only was he really honest with me about his upbringing and kind of his experience and other people he's known, and I was doing other research on the side on my own, but then he kind of gave me this caveat about he wanted me to sort of lean into what it's like to be a recognizable person, and to kind of try to think about the invasion of privacy that I experience, and sort of this idea that in a sense, weirdly, both of us are this type of public property where, and it's true. When he brought it up, I didn't think about it, but I was like, yeah, I get filmed all the time, even when I don't know it. People write all kinds of horrible things about me, or there's an entitlement, there's a possessiveness, right? Like he's saying, I go out into the world and I don't look like everybody else, but it makes everybody else just they could do and say whatever they want, right? Because I'm just fair game. And to some extent, I guess that's what sometimes being a recognizable person's like. But then, more to what was really helpful was getting the prosthetics right and going out into the world actually with these prosthetics and not being recognized and having me feeling what he has felt.
What did that feel like? And we should say, if you haven't seen it, it's unbelievable makeup and prosthetics work. And I think reading, Michael Marino, who's then going after doing this with you for hours in the morning and going over to do Marvelous Mrs. Maisel makeup right after. But
yeah, we had a really hard out with the movie. We had to get it done in 22 days. And this Mike Marino was already working on another job. And he said, look, I'll do it as long as I'm able to do it. But that's going to mean you're going to have to come to my office like at 5 a.m. before I go off to work on the other thing. And so I would do that. And then some days I would have 3 or 4 hours before I would have to go to set fully as Edward. And I would just go walking around the city and it informed everything, but the feeling was extremely isolating. It was powerless is the only way I can describe it. You just don't there were, I mean, I could only see out of one eye. I could only hear out of one ear. I mean, you're just, the way you're distancing yourself from people, you don't want to make eye contact. I mean, everything was being informed by that. But I've talked about this a little bit. No one was courageous enough even to sit near me if I was at a coffee shop, other than like this young little girl that was sort of nearby, and she kept like looking, but wasn't judging. It was just really curious. And you know, her mom just got uncomfortable and stuff and was trying to be polite, of course, wasn't trying to, you know, create a moment or anything, but it really, it revealed something, which it meant that like curiosity is okay. And I've asked Adam about this, you know, in terms of, he talks about curiosity is okay. It's not, we don't have to pretend that this is not happening, but we can inquire it in a different way rather than dismissing it or come at it from a pity place, you know, which is not the right way.
And I know that Adam's thrilled with the film. You guys were together at Berlin, have a very good friendship yourselves. I guess just as a final thing about this film, the first of the 2024s, you know, having it be received the way it was at Berlin, and to, I think, the first kind of really major recognition for your own work, winning, you know, a Best Actor prize at one of the major international film festivals. Just if you can talk about that, and then we'll move on to 2024 part 2.
Yeah, I mean, it was a special moment for me with my sort of little European kind of 360, you know, coming back to Europe at a film festival. I mean, I was blown away by those films and those artists. And we can take our own lessons from Europe a little bit here, especially like as creatives. They don't care. Like they're fearless. They get up on that stage and they're saying their truth and they're speaking about everything. And I was just amazed to be a part of that and to have been included in that. So, but it brought awareness to the film, and I think that was the goal. And now we're talking about it here, so that's the goal. And then I think hopefully, knock on wood, with, you know, the rest of like the next couple of months, you know, it will keep bringing awareness to the film, and then Adam can go on and Aaron can go on, and we can all kind of sleep well at night.
you and Adam both received Gotham.
Adam Pearson was nominated, and the film got
yeah.
So that's really, really exciting.
Okay, so The Apprentice. We are speaking 48 hours before the 2024 presidential election in the great state of Florida, which has just the smoothest history of elections going back many, many years. Let's talk about this. This, though, began coming together or started evolving years and years ago. When did you catch wind of it? And when, I mean, there have been, this guy's been analyzed to death. What made you convinced that there was more to explore once you did get involved?
Well,
or want to get involved?
Look, I can only speak for myself here with this, but I felt, so my first meeting on the movie was in 2019 with the director, Ali Abbasi. And I was like, I know what this is. Like, I mean, I know who this guy is, like, because I can't escape it. It's on the TV, it's in my emails, it's everywhere. So like, but weirdly, when I read it, I sort of found myself kind of forgetting a little bit about who it was at times. And I didn't understand about this relationship that was there in place, this sort of weird father-son kind of love story that existed between him and this, what was the Harvey Weinstein of that time. I mean, like a really ruthless, powerful, cunning lawyer in Roy Cohn.
Played by Jeremy Strong, ultimately, in the
who
film.
The incredible Jeremy Strong plays in the film. And so, but I guess I always, like, I approached it like everything else. I was like, my job as an actor, as a creative, is to just put away like all of my feelings and judgments and try to approach this from a real kind of clear-headed place, and really try to see what is there on the table. What is the evidence that I'm collecting, And in speaking with Ali, who was a European filmmaker, it sort of brought me back around to my first time coming to America. And it started to make me aware of the idea that I grew up with, the American dream. So what essentially started with my sort of dismissive, judgmental attitude of this guy started now to shape to something bigger, which was not just about this guy, but also about a certain mindset. And this idea of, the American dream as we know it, and what is it really? Because I had been obsessing about it since my mom in New York City pointed to the Twin Towers and all around us and said, this is the promised land. This is the land of the free. This is the land of opportunity. This is where you can become someone. And I sacrificed my life for you to get here. And so I have always been in love with this idea, and I am sort of an example of the American dream. I've lucked out. I was able to work. I was able to, I had the opportunity coming here. So I'm in love with it, but at the same time, it's brought me torment and suffering. And I see it consistently in people that so the movie was asking the question of what is the cost? What is the cost? And this man was sort of a really good example of what can happen as a result when you lose who you are, because you are so focused on one thing that nothing else matters, not even your humanity, but it was, and then, why even do it? Why even do the movie? I thought maybe because this was a filmmaker that was European and therefore he didn't really play for any blue or red teams. He was like, look, I'm standing out here and I'm saying, you guys are dealing with a lot. And I'm telling you, like, he's Iranian who had to flee Iran, okay? And he lived in Copenhagen, and his last film was about the Iranian regime. Like, he is not fucking afraid. Yep. And he's like, so I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna go, let's get to the bottom of it. Who is this fucking guy? Who is this guy? Because I don't buy what's up there right now, and I still don't. You know what I mean? I think it's a really brilliant act, but I mean, I'm just saying, let's go in there though, and let's not try to just like, hit it on the head. Like, let's really try to focus on this person. And that's what the film is,
For you, knowing how many other people have either, seriously tried to impersonate him or trying to make fun of him impersonating him or whatever, the physical part of signing up for this, was that, how daunting was that, you're following in a lot of footsteps. I could see that alone, even if you love the idea of what the film's trying to do. For you, you're taking on a lot. Is there a more famous, recognizable person in the world right now?
I've had a lot of people telling me not to do it. I mean, you very well know Jimmy Kimmel told me asked me if I still have my Romanian passport, and based on him trying to deport American citizens, right, as he just said, sounds like Europe's going to be a place for me. Yeah. But yeah, I don't believe in fear. You can't let fear, I don't care what you're doing. You can't anytime there's fear, that should be a red flag to begin with, because you can't, I come from a place that people were silenced and were taught to live in fear. And that was another reason why I was like, I have to do it. But from a physical transformation and from the fact that like everyone has an opinion about this guy, I thought, it may never work out. I don't know if I'll ever get to the core of it, because people might be too close-minded to really want to see beyond the caricature. The caricature is safe. Like, what you're getting is a very safe thing, whether you love him or you hate him. You can put him in a pocket. But if you really go down to like what motivates the guy and how did he become what you're seeing, then I think that's a little scarier, because that makes it closer to you and I. That makes it closer to like the fact that we're all, you know, where are we all standing on the shape of things, you know?
And I think a lot of people have had opinions and expressed opinions about this film, but not a lot of people have seen it. And this goes back to, you guys finally got distributed. First, it screened at Cannes. There were maybe in the highest compliment to the movie, people on both sides were unhappy, right? Because you had Trump allies who were felt it was overly critical, but there were people on dislike Trump who felt you were not hard on this guy. Not you, but the film.
Yeah.
And so finally, after all kinds of fighting to get a distribution situation, you get it just before the Telluride Film Festival. It goes there, plays for actual Americans, predominantly Americans for the first time. And, you know, the people who've seen it really have responded very favorably. And I think that, again, I just wonder if you want to address, like, again, there's criticisms about scenes that there's a particular scene that is in the film that people fixate on. There's things that aren't, that they want to have in it. Can you just, you know, I'm going to just tee it up for you to address the misconceptions that may be out there about this, because people can go home tonight and put it on VOD. It's out there now.
That's right. And if you're living in this country, you should. Because it's your right to. Because if you know, I'm not standing up here to tell you that I'm going to be the leader of the free world, okay, where I'm going to be making decisions that are going to affect populations and generations, and then call other generations garbage and whatever, right? Like but somebody else is, and you have that right to just be curious and know what there is to know. You know, I think that it's funny because, again, in talking about the movie, I have found that the media really loves to play into anything as long as it gets attention or the ratings, and the message keeps getting lost, you know, because what is really so controversial about this film? I mean, what is it? I mean, if I think what's the scariest part is our own level of denial of reality at this point. Like, if you want to really know, it's out there. Like, it's all been documented for the last 30, 40 years. Everything that's in this film has been documented, and it's out there on the internet. And that goes beyond the Wikipedia page. I mean, I read The Art of the Deal. I read, you know, Confidence Man. There's a lot of books that's been written that's been approved even by him and whatever. There's people that have written about, you know, going to the military school with him and what that experience was like. I mean, there's been countless interviews that have been given. There's been a testimony Ivana Trump gave under oath, where she spoke in very detailed language about what had happened. And then you have to ask yourself, when she retracts it later, when there's a settlement, what is the truer version? Is it under oath or is it under pressure? You know, but if you actually are being fair to the guy, okay, and including all of it, then it's against his character not to include those scenes, especially when he's out there on a bus talking about grabbing by the pussy. I mean, sorry, that's just part of who he is. I mean, you know, like, and I think it's difficult because we're in the situation that we're in now. But at the end of the day, you know, people feel very strongly, and there's people that are going to say, we don't know what the truth is anymore. That's the problem. He's muddled it up so much that at this point it's like you feel like anything is you can create your own truth at this point. You can create to believe what you want, and that's what people are doing. But I think if you really care, you can still find it and go out there and do it. And I think the only benefit of the movie is I can sit here and tell you things you've heard already for like 30,000 hours, and it's not really going to make a difference. You hear facts, we all hear information, but you don't experience it. It's the experience of being with this person for 2 hours and seeing where he's coming from and really asking yourself at the end of this film is like, do you trust this person? Do you really trust that this guy is going to make a decision that's going to be good for you or good for him? And let me tell you something. There is one paranoid, scared little man, okay, that's still out there fighting the good fight to get into like the membership club of Manhattan and be put on a plaque on a wall. He ain't caring about your situation. He's got to get there first, and that's just what the film is.
Well, on this, I think that, again, everybody should take advantage of the opportunity to see both of these films, to appreciate, when you look at them side by side, the range of talent of this man, and to feel the excitement that I and so many others who have seen both films feel about waiting to see what you do next. And so with that, it is my privilege to bring back up here the great folks behind the Miami Film Festival Gems event, who are going to give you some hardware to take back home.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Scott and Sebastian. That was such an incredible conversation that really framed everything perfectly for tonight's award presentation. So when I saw the movie A Different Man, I thought to myself, oh my God, I just saw the most incredible performance of the year, hands down. It was compelling, it was complex, and it was so thought-provoking, I honestly couldn't stop thinking about it. Then just a few short weeks later, I saw The Apprentice, and I thought, wait, oh my God, now I just saw the best performance of the year. And I was like, how is it? I mean, it's pretty much, in my opinion, Sebastian Stan competing against himself for the best performance of the year. Let's see. You really have to see both of these movies, The Apprentice and A Different Man. They truly are astounding. And I don't think any actor has had a better year than Sebastian Stan, and I don't think you'll see any better performance than these two performances this year. They are really so worthy of award recognition, so we're so excited to be doing this tonight. But first, let's quickly play the clip reel.
Base is falling off in clumps. What do you want?
Yes.
Hello, this is Donald Trump from Mr. Cohn. Thank you so much.
Donald who? 1, 2, 3, 4!
I'm not planning on taking you alive.
Good strategy.
You ain't walking out with a fucking wingman.
Actually, a pretty meek guy.
Trying to make you laugh and it's not working.
Cheese balls over here.
You want one?
No, it looks totally disgusting.
I don't have the full context as to what was going on.
There could be some kind of 21 Jump Street spy battalion type dudes. What do you make of all this, Jeff?
Scary prospect what the world is coming to.
That's basically it.
Is there more of you?
No.
On behalf of Miami Film Festival, I am so proud to present Sebastian Stan with our Precious Gem Award.
Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.